Hello there, and welcome to my guide on how to get your first completion in the Tombs of Amascut. Now this is definitely going to be a low-level guide. This is specifically aimed at entry mode and people looking to get their very first completion of TOA either for learning purposes or to complete the mini quests associated with this raid. This guide is also going to be extremely budget and Ironman friendly, as all of the items that I've got in my inventory are fairly easy to get on an Ironman or even on a main without a lot of money. Stats wise, going into the raid, I would recommend that you have at least base 70 melees, 70 ranged, and around the upper 70s for magic. 70 prayer is definitely not necessarily required. I got my first completions with only chivalry. As you can see, I'm only 97 combat, but I got my first completions around 90 combat. So taking a look at the equipment here, it's got quite a spread. You have to take all three combat styles into this raid, and this setup tries to balance that as much as possible without sacrificing too much in terms of offense. So my core melee setup is going to be pretty basic, just Black Dragon Hide, Helm of Nizinot, Fire Cape, Dragon Defender, Barrow's Gloves, all items that should be relatively straightforward to get at this point on an Ironman or easy to buy or gain access to on a main. One notable thing is I'm using the Kurtis Partisan here as my primary weapon. All the monsters inside the raid are weak to stab, so you want to take your best stab weapon you have access to, and this is just kind of the baseline. Everyone will have access to this after completing the Beneath Cursed Sands quest, so it's a good baseline item to take if you have nothing else. If you are a main and you can have access to a little bit of money to purchase upgrades, an easy cheap upgrade would be something like the Dragon Sword. Also, the Dragon Boots here are a little bit difficult to get, so taking something like Rune Boots or Climbing Boots even is totally fine. For magic, it's just Mystics with an Unholy Book. It doesn't even need to have pages in it, really any magic offhand will do. And then an Ancient Staff so I can auto cast blood spells. You notice I have all of the runes I need for all of the blood spells up to including Blood Barrage, because you actually get a boost inside the raid that allows you to cast higher level spells, significantly higher than your current level. So I'll be able to cast Blood Barrage near the end of the raid, but in the beginning I'll have to cast a lower level spell. So for range, you'll want two different loadouts for inside the raid. One will be a quick hitting loadout. In this case I'm using the Magic Shortbow, which is a pretty nice base level fast hitting range weapon, and I have Amethyst arrows, but lower level arrows would be just fine. And then of course the Abyss Accumulator to help pick up those arrows and also provide a little bit of range bonus. The other range thing that you'll want is a crossbow and Ruby Bolt's E. These help a lot at a couple specific bosses because of their special attack that can hit up to 100 damage. I highly recommend taking both along as they have extreme utility within the raid. Supplies wise, I just have some basic food, some sharks, some prayer potions, a super anti-poison because there are venom and poison things in the raid that you'll want to take this along for. And then finally, I've got a Lizard Kicker here. It's like a budget range potion. It gives you a +4 range boost, but obviously take a range potion if you have access to that, as that's a lot better. The last thing in my inventory is the Dragon Dagger, which plays a very critical role at the very end of the fight, which I'll explain when we get there. So that's all there pretty much is to it. If you have access to something like an attack and strength potion or even a super combat potion, take a dose of that before you enter the raid. Also take a dose of a stamina potion if you can before you enter the raid, but both of those are not strictly necessary either at this level. They will just give you a little bit of a help. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the raid. So I like to do the Path of Scrabus first, as I feel like it benefits the least from having some of the buffs you get later on during the raid. Now during the Path of Scrabus, you're going to be able to pick which path you want in terms of puzzles. The only one I recommend missing out on or avoiding is the obelisks back here, as they take a significant longer time to solve than any of the other puzzles. And you're basically going to be doing this as a solo in a diagonal fashion. So if I pick the left path, I'll be doing the right puzzle at the back. If I pick the right path, I'll be doing the left puzzle at the back. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the left path here so I can do this puzzle and then the one to the right in the back. In this puzzle, you have to activate tiles that represent the exact number that you get from checking that ancient tablet right there. And the number that you get from each tile is kind of given at the beginning of the raid. I'll put a picture of it on screen so you know exactly how much to get. But my strategy is to just go ahead and activate all the 9s, which gives you 27, and then do the math from there. So I gotta do 27, that's 34, and then I need an 8. And for the 8, I'll do a 4 and a 4. And there we go. Don't worry too much about the little scarabs that come and attack you. They do some damage, but the damage won't matter a ton. Now for this puzzle, you're going to go ahead and do a memory game here, which is pretty straightforward. Just 5 tiles like Simon says. Then go ahead and jump across and do the final puzzle. So for this puzzle, I like to check 3. That was knives, boot, and star, which is boot, knives, and squiggle. So we're just going to match them up that way. I know the first one was knives. Now on this side, I'm going to check one of these. It's diamond. I know where the boot is over here, so I'm going to grab that one. Now I know where the diamond is over here, and I should know where the remaining 2 tiles are because I know that one is squiggle, the other must be star. Ideally, you won't lose any hit points during the puzzle phase, but if you do, don't be afraid to eat up a food. You won't need the food for very long in this raid. So this brings us to our first boss with his Kefri. We're going to start by activating Piety, running in, and dumping our Dragon Dagger specials into him. Now this isn't very effective. The Dragon Dagger specials will likely miss, but we might as well use them because we have the special attack and we don't really have much else of a use for it at this low level. Then we're just going to go ahead and attack Kefri with Stab using the Karis Partisan. Every so often you'll get that little fly effect over you. That means that Kefri is about to launch a wall of dung in your direction. Just wait for it to knock you back and then click to walk away from it as soon as you can after that triggers. After you get Kefri down for the first phase, you're going to want to put on Protect from Range, put on your range gear, and start attacking the swarms that spawn. Also, you'll have to avoid the suicide beetles that fly at you, as they'll hit you for a lot of damage if they get you. Just ignore the spitting scarab for the time being, as he won't do much damage to you. With the magic shortbow, you're going to be able to stop most of these scarabs swarms, but not all of them, as they will eventually start getting to Kefri and heal them up. As they start to spawn more rapidly, start moving over to the spitting scarab and get your melee gear back on to attack it. You're going to want to take down the spitting scarab next, as it will eventually start healing up Kefri if you leave it alive. A few hits and should take it down, and now you want to begin moving around to the other side of Kefri. Kefri will eventually put out some of these little bombs here. You need to avoid them, and you don't want to be in a tile adjacent to them. They will explode after a little while, so what I like to do is just stay at least 2 tiles away from them, and then they will spawn some agile scarabs that you can definitely avoid and ignore, because they just attack you with range. Just keep Protect from Range on. Now I'm in this corner for the next dung attack. That'll create a box here that's going to trap one of the future minions, and that's pretty crucial. Sometimes you'll kill Kefri fast enough that it won't even be able to spawn 2 dung waves at you. If so, not a big deal. But now you can see I can attack this arcane scarab that appears without the soldier scarab being able to hit me at all. Now you definitely want to attack this arcane scarab as fast as possible. As you can see, it's charging up an attack, and if it gets to charge all the way, it's going to hit you with a massive damage attack. After the arcane scarab is dead, we're going to go back to killing scarab swarms. During the second phase, you'll probably get a lot more Kefri health in, because you do have to focus that arcane scarab as much as possible. Now after Kefri starts attacking you again, throw on your magic equipment and attack the warrior scarab over here with your best magic spell. All the while, make sure you're avoiding the Kefri attacks as much as possible. After that's dead, go ahead and throw back on your melee gear and start attacking Kefri again. From this point on, you're pretty much in the clear. It's just going to be attacking and avoiding the fire bombs as they spawn and moving away from the dung walls when they spawn. After the third time of getting Kefri's shield down, you're actually going to unlock his true health bar. He will hit you with the dung attack immediately after that happens, and after this point the dung attacks will be coming a lot sooner. But the fight remains the same pretty much. And there we go, Kefri's down. We can turn off our prayer and move on to the next room. After this, I like to do Path of Chronness, which is going to be the crocodile boss. This is definitely the easiest room. You just have to collect water from these kind of waterfall looking things at the end of the sepulcher-like obstacle courses. And there's one very key thing about this room. If you stand 3 tiles away from the very first statue that has this obstacle that appears, and then just run straight through, you can't be hit by the statues at all. You can only be hit by the green things coming across. So what I like to do is just stand here, wait for there to be a clearing where there's no green thing coming across my lane, run straight across, fill from the waterfall, and then repeat from the other side. So then you'll click on the tree to fill it with water, and these crocodiles will spawn. If you're quick enough, you can freeze them with an ice spell and get this done in 2 rotations. But because I was explaining things, I took a little while, and I won't have time to do that this time. So I'll have to do 3, which is no big deal. If you do get hit by an obstacle on your way back, you will lose half of the water that you're carrying, so try not to do that, as that will be a huge waste. You do take small amounts of damage from getting hit with obstacles, but it's not too big of a concern as long as you're not actually carrying water. So after that, go ahead and throw on your crossbow, as you're going to be facing a boss that just has a massive HP pool, and that's Sabak. And as you can see, I get a special attack right off the bat, hits 100 damage, and that's 20% of his health down immediately. So he's going to go ahead and spawn some jugs and some piles of poison. I like to hit 1 jug near me just to kind of clear out my area around. And then he'll spawn waves of water that will push you off the arena if you're not careful. So make sure you stand in the gap And also mind the fact that the waves have a little bit of a lag to them, where if you move too quickly after they pass you, you will get kind of sucked into them. The other thing you have to worry about with Zabak is this attack right here, where he spawns the boulders in front of you, and you have to push an urn into the boulders to kind of clear the poison behind them to protect yourself from this roar attack. This is happening very quickly as I'm doing a lot of damage, so it can be a little complex. Zabak's basic attack is either a ranged or a magic attack, which hits you at the moment the actual projectile triggers with you, and you just protect range if it's a rock or protect mage if it's a little fireball. Other than that, Zabak works in phases based on his health. He will alternate which attack he uses, either the wave attack or the rock attack. So for the most part, it should be a pretty straightforward fight. Now near the end, when Zabak gets down low health, he's going to go ahead and swap into his frenzy mode, which just basically means he's going to do no more special attacks, but his regular attacks will become faster. At this point, I like to swap to the fast range weapon instead, as it does more DPS than the ruby bolts because his HP is now low. You can also prayer flick these basic attacks like I'm doing to save some prayer, but you can also just leave them up to be safer. And just like that, Zabak is dead. One thing I forgot to do is actually drink my lizard kicker, so that was a little bit of a waste. Definitely remember to do that. So after you defeat your second boss, you're going to be presented with an helpful spirit here. He's going to go ahead and present you with 3 options. So for this first option, I highly recommend taking power, as the smelling salts are basically like an overload, and the liquid adrenaline halves your special attack costs, which can be pretty fun. If you're a little worried, you can go with chaos, which always should give you some smelling salts at this level, and a bunch of nectars, which are basically serotonin brews, and tears of lidiness, which are super restores. I wouldn't recommend going with life just yet, though the ambrosias are nice because they're full heal, and the silk dressings can heal you for like 100 health as well over time. For now, I'm going to go with the power, as the smelling salts will help a lot. So next I recommend doing Het, and Het's got probably the most annoying puzzle room in my opinion. So when you go into the room, you're going to be presented with a puzzle. This is a light puzzle where you have to reflect the light beams into the statue on the east side of the room. All the while you have to avoid these orbs of darkness, though they're not too common. So as you can see, there's a big wall to the south of the statue here. I'm going to direct the light up towards the north and then down this way into the statue. You can place the mirrors, rotate them, and push them around to position them where you need them. One thing you do have to be a little wary about is the fact that the light can damage you if you're not careful. And you can mine these broken barriers in order to clear the way as well. Once you've got the mirrors set up in the correct orientation, run towards the center, as this seal in the center will become exposed and you can mine it to do damage. If your mining level is high and you have a high tier pickaxe such as a dragon pickaxe, you can do this in 1 or 2 cycles, but at my mining level and the fact that I only have a rune pickaxe means that it will take me 3. One thing to note is the beam of light doesn't actually have to hit the shield part of the statue, it just needs to hit the statue anywhere, so you can approach it from the side quite easily as well. One thing I should have mentioned is you're only provided with a bronze pickaxe when you first start the raid, so before you even begin your first raid, it's a good idea to come into the Het room straight away, add a rune pickaxe to the statue so you have it for the future, exit that raid, and then actually start your first raid after that. So for Het, we're actually going to begin with our magic setup. And one thing that you can do is you can now take one of your smelling salts here, and as you can see, that'll boost my magic level to 102, so now I can go ahead and use Blood Barrage, and I highly recommend doing that. You can manage your inventory using the supplies item here, click open to see what supplies you have, and you can use the supplies on it to put them back away. So when you first enter Het, he's going to basically take on 3 different types of weaknesses depending on what the prayers above his head are, and the first one is going to be magic, and he always attacks you with the opposite style of the combat triangle, so he's going to be weak to magic and hit you with melee. One thing you can do is you can run around the room for this first part of the fight to avoid damage entirely, but for this first raid I recommend just standing still and letting him deal damage to you, as your blood spells will heal up nicely. After you deal a quarter of his health and damage, he's going to spawn some shadows around the room and become invulnerable, so that means that you'll have to attack the shadows first to make him vulnerable again. He'll also trigger a special attack occasionally, which is just like a Simon Says game, so I saw that this was lightning, ice, fire, ice. So just make sure you're standing in that quadrant of the room that it matches. He'll also swap attack styles after that happens. He's going to attack me with range, and I'm going to range the actual shadow here, as it's weak to just about anything, so hit it with the highest DPS thing you got. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit Akka with melee, as he's attacking me with range. He's weak to melee. Now he's swapping again, and he turned me this kind of dark color, and he's going to be weak to ranged. During this, if I move, I'll be putting some orbs behind me that are basically damaging tiles. If you hit them after they spawn, they will damage you. I did a little bit of damage to him, and now I'm going to go ahead and kill his next shadow. As you can see, the previous shadow I damaged is now invulnerable. And now he's swapping to melee, and he triggered the memory attack again, so Skull, Fire, ice, fire. And now I'm going to throw on my mage equipment and then just keep damaging him with the style he's weak to. Now, one thing you have to be careful of is if you can't kill the shadows fast enough, you can see this hourglass kind of charging up over here. That does mean that all of the shadows in the room will trigger the floor special attack and actually damage you, so make sure you kill them fast enough if you can. This also continues charging even after you kill the vulnerable shadow, so make sure you avoid the sides of the room that do not have the missing shadow. You can see here they're about to charge up, and they will trigger their attacks and damage the floor across the entire rest of the room other than my current quadrant. And now this will be the last time that Akka activates his invulnerability. So after you get his health down to 0, he's going to be only weak to melee, and things are going to get a little bit hectic, so make sure you're ready to attack him with melee at that time. So what I recommend doing to get ready is drink a dose of this liquid adrenaline, as you'll want to be able to use its special attack boosting feature. So after Akka goes down, I recommend putting on Redemption, as it will be handy, and then keep Piety on, equip your Dragon Dagger, and be ready to special attack him. He's going to spawn in these orbs that walk around the room, and they do massive damage if they actually hit you. He'll also respawn occasionally across the room, so make sure you keep following where he goes. Really, this is just a DPS check, so you have to kill him before the orbs kill you. If you're good enough, you can really avoid the orbs, but I find it really difficult and easier just to focus on DPSing him down. And there we go, that was Akka. Now onto the last room, which is the path of Immaking and Baba. When you enter this room, go ahead and grab a hammer and some of these potions from the crates on the side, and make sure they're available in your inventory and ready to go. I recommend taking another dose of your salts, because you have so many, you might as well refresh it, or you could wait till they run out before you do it again. The first thing you want to do is throw on your mage gear in this room, because basically what we're going to be doing is fighting a bunch of monkeys, each that has a specific weakness to one side of the combat triangle, and we need to be ready to be on the switches, but the first one is always melee. Again, using our best spell here, which is going to be Blood Barrage, because our magic level is boosted. So red monkeys, of course, are weak to magic. After that, go ahead and swap to your ranged. And you're also going to get these little monkey orbs here that appear over either the roof supports or the grates here. If they're over the roof supports, go ahead and repair the roof supports by clicking on them. You can see I had a mage minion there and a melee minion. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw on Protect from Melee, as I have a melee minion coming at me. And then the first special monkey here is the Baboon Shaman. He'll actually spawn unlimited amounts of baboon thralls to damage you, so make sure you DPS him down with ranged as fast as possible. One of the other special types of monkeys here is the Cursed Baboon. It'll make a trail of venom that you need to avoid. There you go, I just triggered it, and now I need to be very careful as I just got venomed. This is the other type of special minion, the Volatile Baboon. He'll explode when he gets close to you. The best way to deal with him is actually just to run through him, so make sure that you keep moving and don't stand still too long. He does take a while to blow up, though. So there you go. See, I just ran through the Volatile Baboon just like that. And then what you can do is you can go ahead and swap to your blood spell and heal up off of all of these minions. Okay, there's the grates. I'm going to go ahead and come over here and pour a potion into the grate. And after a set number of waves, the room will just be complete after you kill all the minions. So on to Baba. Baba is purely a melee boss, so make sure you equip your melee attack weapon. And I also recommend taking a dose of liquid adrenaline now, as you can use it to dump specs into Baba at the very beginning of the fight. So I'm going to go ahead and pray Piety, Protect from Melee, and attack Baba with melee. Avoid these boulders when they fall, pretty straightforward. And then you want to stand by some of the bigger boulders for a future special attack. So you can see Baba is going to throw a boulder at me, though I cancel it because I killed him too fast. So after that, he's going to go ahead and jump up to the top of the arena and start throwing boulders at you, which you need to attack the damaged one with ranged. Ideally, you have the ability to kill these in one hit. I do not. I'm 1 damage off. Just kidding, I can. So just keep hitting the damaged boulder and avoid being hit by the ones that aren't damaged, and you'll be fine in this spot. One thing you can do is you can skip ahead and attack Baba directly to skip some of the boulder phases, but don't worry about that too much for your first time through. After a little bit, he's going to turn back around and begin damaging you once again. He'll also do this shadow ground attack occasionally. When that happens, just run out of the way and you'll avoid all the damage. Another thing he can do is he can spawn ranged minions that will damage you over time. I recommend killing those when they appear, though I've skipped them in this round. Here's an example of the boulder attack actually hitting me and hitting the rubble and avoiding most of the damage into me instead of actually hitting me. And there we go, Baba down. So after you complete your 4th mini boss, you're going to be able to be presented with more supplies from the Helpful Spirit. And this is where I actually recommend grabbing the life, as you'll need some of the ambrosias and stuff to help you in the final fights. I kind of got a crappy one here as I only got one ambrosia, but hopefully you'll get two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab these bandages and crystal scarabs, as the bandages heal me up over time and the crystal scarabs will boost my prayer over time. Grab another salt, grab my liquid adrenaline, and then I'm going to grab a little bit of prayer in one of these. What you can actually do at this point is you can go ahead and drop your food if you want to use the brews instead, but I'm just going to save the food as it should be enough for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take a dose of salt, put those back away, and we're going to go ahead and start the next fight. So this is the final fight, and it takes place in 3 phases. The very first phase is just going to be damaging this obelisk in the center until it dies, while the 2 statues on the sides trigger special attacks at you. It's not too bad, so it should be pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin the fight, throw on piety, and attack the obelisk. I'm going to save my special attack for later in the fight. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand to the side here to block these little skulls from coming to the warden. As you can see, they're charging up, and that's basically going to trigger their attacks, and I don't want them to trigger at the same time, as that will be really bad. So after I've stood there for a little while, they'll trigger at separate times. The first attack is going to be this little AoE attack that kind of attacks the room on diagonals, and then the opposite will happen when the other side charges. So you can see I swapped to ranged for a few hits there just to keep the damage up as it hit. The second phase of special attacks are going to be unavoidable orbs that will damage you pretty intensely. In teams, these have some specific mechanics to them, one that you have to be together and one that you have to be apart, but in solos, they just damage you and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to go ahead and use a bandage here to start healing up from this damage that's unavoidable. After you get the obelisk down, it will collapse one of the wardens, the one that got less charge, and the other one will begin attacking you. The left one will be weak to range in the beginning, and the right one will be weak to mage in the beginning. So I'm just going to begin attacking it with my fast range weapon and beginning praying against its attacks. If it fires a skull at you, it's a mage attack. If it fires a rock at you, it's a range attack. So there's a range attack, and you can see the obelisk in the center is starting to trigger some special attacks at me, so I'm just going to avoid those as much as possible. Also keeping my distance from the warden, as it does have a melee attack. Now after you damage it fully, it's going to go ahead and drop its core on the ground. I'm going to take my liquid adrenaline and start dumping Dragon Dagger specials into it. As you can see, you always max against it, so the Dragon Dagger has got insane DPS against this guy. You can dump 4 specials into it, and then ideally a 5th hit with a regular weapon, but I was slow as I was explaining, so I missed my 5th hit. So after he resurrects, he's going to be weak to mage instead of melee. So I'm going to begin hitting it with Blood Barrage, which is cool because that'll also heal me up. You can see there, I got the special attack that turned off my prayer. That's the other attack that he has. So he'll either fire an arcane orb, arrow, or scimitar at you, and you have to turn your prayer on again to the correct prayer. The color of each attack is very obvious as to which one you need to turn on. So I'm just going to keep my distance here and damaging the warden with... So there's an arcane scimitar. I'm going to turn on my melee prayer and then avoid these attacks on the floor here. And there we go. We've damaged him down again. So let's go ahead and throw on that melee gear using the Dragon Dagger special attacks and piety again. And then it's going to be back to range. So I'm going to throw on my ranged equipment and keep avoiding the attacks as much as possible. He does unlock one more special attack during this phase, and that's kind of the ability to lock you in place in rock, kind of like the Basilisk Knights do, and all you have to do is just avoid that when it comes out, so it's not too bad. It winds up being inconsequential because you're moving most of the fight anyway. And there's that special attack. This should be the last time that the core comes out, so I'm going to dump my remaining special attacks in. You should be able to get him down in 3 downs, no problem, even at this level. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my ambrosia and some more of my supplies here, take another salt, and then swap to my crossbow as we're beginning the final phase of the fight. Now you can see I have this middle tile marked here, and that's because that is the kind of middle zone of safety. So he's going to attack the left side of the room, the right side of the room, and then both sides of the room where the center is safe. So kind of respect the middle of the room here. After he attacks the left, move to the right. When he attacks the right, move to the left, and so on. After you damage him enough, he's going to go ahead and spit out these skulls here. They are a 1-tick attack with a melee weapon, so go ahead and melee them down really quickly. If you're too slow, you'll take some massive damage from them. And you can see here's where the Ruby Bolt specs really help, as the health pool for this boss is also massive, and I'm getting super lucky with these. So after the second skulls, he's going to spawn a shadow to help him, and it's going to be Akka. Akka's going to use ranged attacks just like during the fight, so just protect from range in order to protect yourself. Occasionally during the fight, he will change his attack styles, so keep an eye out for that, because he'll slam his spear into the ground when he does that. Just like that. After the third phase, he's going to go ahead and spawn the next phantom, which is Kefri, and Kefri is going to fire fireballs at you just like in their normal fight. So just make sure you avoid those and keep damaging the warden. And then this will be the final phase of skulls. Just make sure you hit them as fast as possible. You don't have to be perfect at this level, but you do still have to be pretty quick. Now that the Warden is very low health, I'm going to go ahead and swap to my fast range weapon instead. Okay, this will begin the final phase of the fight, where things kind of just get a little bit chaotic. You get lightning going down, the back of the arena will start to fall away, and for the most part, most of the damage will come from the two minions, Akka and the Scarab. So just keep damaging the boss as much as possible. One thing you could do is take your liquid adrenaline and spec dump. Just make sure you avoid damage. Once your health gets low, take that ambrosia as it'll heal you up to full. And what I like to do is just keep moving around the room between every attack. Try to click on tiles that you know are safe. And just keep damaging the boss down, avoiding the back of the arena, as you will take damage if you're on one of those tiles that flies away. And there we go. That is the Tombs of Amascut. So I hope that you have good luck in your first attempt, and everything goes well. Thanks for watching. Of course, I can't leave without thanking all the people who have joined this channel as members. Your support means so much to me, and an extra huge thank you, of course, to our top tier supporters, KittyLynne, Mad Hatter, and Peepo Time. Alright, take care everyone, good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.